So how are you guys doing? Everyone good? Good. Yeah. Who's excited? Anyone? Good. This is going to be a very exciting course. This is the culminations of over 3 or 4 years. I've been teaching this a lot. And you're about to have the best version of what this is. So congratulations, folks. You chose the right one to come to. Now, a couple of things as we get launched into it. You may notice that from time to time my voice is a little bit fast. That's just part of my thinking style, I guess. So if at any point I'm speaking a bit too fast or you don't quite catch something, please feel free to put your hand up. I'll ask you to slow down and stuff like that. I will not take offense at all. If you need something repeated again, just put your hand up and ask for that. Again, I'd rather you get what we need to be doing here than anything else. Does that make sense? Just a quick question, because I know there's quite a few nationalities in here. I presume there's a few Americans in the room. Is that correct? Yeah, I thought so. Any Canadians? I think I spoke to a couple of Canadians. Wow, you're almost as many as the Americans. That's good. Yeah. Beware White House. I think the Canadians came once and burned the White House down, didn't they, some years ago? So this might be a secret infiltration. Keep an eye on them, okay? What other countries do we have present? I believe there's a couple of Germans or Austrians, is that right? Germanics? Perfect, like that. What other countries we have? Colombia. Rock and roll, well done. What other countries? Belgium. Excellent, nice waffles, I like that. Finland. I haven't tasted the waffles, but I'm sure they're very nice there too. Caribbean, love the place. Which part of the Caribbean? Bonaire? I haven't been, but I may come and visit you soon. Holland, great place. We just did one of these in Holland. When was it? 6 months ago, something like that. So, well, you chose the right one to come to, anyways. At the back, the UK, excellent. I grew up in London, so I love the place. Singapore, fantastic. I may have to come visit you as well. It's always I've heard good things about the place.
Czech Republic.
The Czech Republic, fantastic, great beer. It's true. Go ahead. Australia, we were there at the beginning of the year. You have actually the best seafood I've ever had. I am very jealous. I really am. Go ahead. Romania, fantastic. And Scotland, yes, not UK, you see, Scotland. Right at the back. Puerto Rico, fantastic. And a few more hands. We have Korea, beautiful country, very nice country. And Panama. Have I been? No, I haven't been. I'll have to come. And India, beautiful. So we have a lot of nationalities and a lot of cultures here. Would that be fair to say? Oh, we have missing someone here. Go ahead. Florida, that is a state of its own. You're quite right. Now, I'm very pleased. I really enjoy when there's a lot of nationalities come to the seminars rather than everyone being from the same sort of area. And the reason for it is because there's a lot of different cultures. Each nation, as you know, will have a slightly different culture. They see the world differently. They experience it differently. And what we're doing here is conversation hypnosis, right? Specifically, conversation hypnosis for hypnotherapy, right? Whilst the principles you'll be learning here will be equally applicable for sales or for parenting and all these other things, that is not our primary purpose here. You're all aware of that. Is that correct? Yeah? And it's great to have different cultures because when you meet someone who's not from where you are, they have different expectations. They have a different worldview, which means you've heard of the idea of culture clash, where your expectations suddenly aren't met and vice versa. It's great to have these things brought to face because it stops you making assumptions about people. And as a hypnotherapist, the last thing you can do is make any assumptions about that person. Does that kind of make sense? So I'm going to really encourage you guys as the week progresses to get to know everyone else, especially people who are from as far afield as possible from where you're from, so that you can get maybe the strangeness of the interaction, or the novelty, or the pleasure, or even the displeasure. Because, once again, not all clients that come and see you, that you work with, will be clients that'll be easy to work with. Does that make sense? So you may as well use this as your training room, within which you learn the core skills, the interactions, around which the hypnosis is built, right? Can all of you hold a conversation with another person? Yes? That is the only prerequisite I have here. If you couldn't understand what I just said, that's the other prerequisite. In other words, If you don't understand English, then it's very difficult for me to teach you. But if you understand what I'm saying right now, if you can hold a conversation with someone else and converse with them, even if it's at a relatively basic level, the key to doing conversation hypnosis and hypnotherapy is the ability to communicate an idea and make that idea hypnotic. Does that make sense? Now, yes, you will be learning a lot of sophisticated language tools and ways of using this and that and the other. But that is not the important part of what you will be learning. Please do not get blinded by the language. The language will come on its own. But if you need to choose between the language and the meaning or the idea that you're communicating, always choose the idea. Does that make sense to everyone? How many of you would like to truly master hypnosis? Only a few of you? There's a few hands missing. Let's try that again. How many of you really want to master hypnosis? Excellent. Would you like to know what the secret to mastering hypnosis is? Yes? Only 4 of you? All right. Everyone else goes on a break. You come forward and I'll whisper. But seriously, who would like to know the real secret to making this work? Right? It's a real simple idea. Have all of you heard the idea that practice makes perfect? Yes? That is not true. What practice makes is permanent. Correct practice makes perfect. You're going to have a lot of opportunities to practice things over the next 7 days. But one of the things people don't tell you on the path to mastery, on the path to correct practice, is that in order to know what is correct, you're going to have to make mistakes. You're going to have to fail a lot to go to the point to realize what you don't want to do anymore. The next 7 days are your opportunities to fail spectacularly. I hope you dive in and really take advantage of it, because there are no consequences in here. The consequences come when there's a paying client in front of you. Does that make sense to you guys? Now, I will make you a promise. I'm going to make you several. The first of which is, if you're willing to dive in and make plenty of mistakes, have no clue what you're doing, but be willing to do it anyway, just to see what happens, we'll make sure that by the end of this whole process, you'll know exactly what correct practice looks like, you'll know exactly what to do and when to do it. We'll make sure that when you have failed, you'll know exactly how to pull yourself out, because let's face it, when you face the real client, a real hypnotherapy client, stuff's going to happen that you don't expect. You're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is not whether or not you made a mistake. What matters is, what do you do immediately after you've realized that you've made one? That is what separates the master from someone who's merely average or incompetent even. That's what we're here to find out, right? The question is, what would be a mistake? You don't even know what mistakes are yet, do you? So we're going to have to dive in and find out, aren't we? Now, I'd like to warn you about a couple of things. The first thing is, a lot of the material that we'll be covering here may seem at one point or another to be complex to you. And I want to assure you that nothing that I will ask of you will actually be complex. It will be sophisticated. And there's a difference between the two. The difference between complexity and sophistication is that complexity can be, well, it's difficult to understand, you can't quite get your head around it, and all the rest of it. When something is sophisticated, it means that at the smallest level, it is simple and easy to do. It's just there's a lot of things put together at the same time. It's kind of like driving a car. Anyone drive a car or ride a bike? Right? Only half of you ride a bike? Wow. Anyone walk? You may recall that when you first started to learn to ride a bike, drive a car, whatever you do, that there's a lot of little things you have to do, isn't there? You've got to check the mirrors. You've got to know where the steering wheel is and what it does. You've got the pedals to maneuver for going faster, going slower. If you learned in a manual car, you have to figure out how the gears work and how to move them around. Would that be correct? Do you remember your first time doing all these things? Would it be fair to say you were a little bit overloaded? It felt like an impossible task. It felt complex, right? And now, I'm not going to ask any hands to go up because I know one or two of you will sit there on the phone, maybe smoking a cigarette, driving, talking to your neighbor, and then looking around every now and again, just a casual glimpse on the road just to make sure there's no big trucks on the way, right? It's become easy. It's become automatic for you, hasn't it? It's become unconscious. Every single thing you'll be doing in here will be easy to do. Every single thing. The only reason it may feel difficult is because you're trying to do too much. You'll be adding stuff to it that wasn't necessarily asked for. And if you want to do it, by all means, knock yourself out. Have fun with it. But every single thing you'll be asked to do will be easy. And the only way it could get complex if you stay on task, shall we say, is if you're trying to do too much at one time. Do you know what the solution to that is? Stop it. Do one thing first, and then think about what the next thing will be. There's no need to do them all at once. That kind of elegance comes with time, with practice, with experience. I cannot give you that time. We're not going to be here for a month to do that. I can give you the experience, and I can give you enough practice of that so that you know how to do it on your own when you go home and keep going. Does that make sense to you guys? Now, in order to learn all these things and make them very natural to you, we're going to be basically using what we're teaching. We're going to use hypnosis to help you learn hypnosis more quickly, more easily, more efficiently, and so on. But that means there's going to be another thing that's going to happen. And this is a promise. At some point over the next 6 days, you're going to have no idea what's going on. No clue. Some of you may even start having difficulty grasping onto what's real and what's not real and where you are and who you are. I guarantee you it's going to happen. At some point, your mind is going to have no idea what's happening and what to do next. And that's okay. If you're willing to go through that, I will make you a promise. 6 days from now, you'll know exactly what to do. You'll know exactly when to do it and how to do it. And that is a complete promise. But you will go through that phase where you have no clue. Where as far as you're concerned, everything you're doing is probably wrong. Now, I invite you to consider this when you get to that point. Number one, I made the promise that it's going to happen, and I also made the promise that it's going to end. Number two, you have no idea what is expected of you. And for at least the next 4 days, you really will have no idea what's expected of you on purpose. So if you have no idea what's expected of you, how can you get it wrong? The only way you can be doing something wrong is if you think you should be achieving something specific when you're not. Rest assured, whatever you think you should be achieving will not be it. So, if you think you're doing it wrong, pat yourself on the back and keep going, because you're probably on the right path. Is that a fair deal that we can make? I want you to just really reflect on that for a moment, because it's going to happen. And I realize that the modern school system is not the most user-friendly experience, and that from time to time some personal issues will come up as a result of that. And well, let's face it, we've all lived life, and some things can come up from that from time to time. But I want you to realize something else. We're here to do a hypnotherapy training, right? You're training to learn the skills of a hypnotherapist. What you're not here to do is to get personal therapy. This is not a group therapy session. Does that make sense? You understand the distinction? Whilst you can absolutely expect some personal transformation to occur as a result of what's happening here, it's a side effect. I'm sorry, we can't help it. Don't look for specific changes. The only thing you're focusing on is at the end of the process. In fact, to be honest with you, the only thing to be focusing on is what happens next. That's really the only responsibility you have. If you know what you do next, when you go into an exercise, what's expected of you, when you're doing a particular thing, you just have no idea how to end it, but you know how to start it, that's all we require of you. Only one step, the next one. the only thing that's required of you. Anything you put on top of that, well, that's on you. And if you can't stop it, well, then you'll learn, shall we say, the consequences of trying to do too much too soon. The promise is at the end of the whole process, you will do everything and you'll do it well. But you have to go through that phase where you're willing to put things on pause. Now, it does mean there's a lot of responsibility, personal responsibility on you guys for getting the best out of this training, right? That means if something unpleasant happens to you, do you know who's going to pull you out of it? You. Right? It's your responsibility. Let's face it. How many hypnotherapists in the room again? Put your hands up. Would it be fair to say, for those of you with experience, that from time to time a client comes up with an issue that sparks something off in you, and for a moment, your own, if I can speak some French for a moment, shit comes up too, right? You have to learn to keep that together because otherwise you can't do this work. Does that make sense to you guys? So if something does arise in you, pull yourself back together. Find ways to trust your own unconscious mind, to put it back in the back of your mind, put it back in a safe place where it is right now, and carry on with your training in a good, positive attitude. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? Yes. Now, of course, we have assistants here. You have myself here as well as a resource, and we'll help you along the journey. But do not expect us to do hypnotherapy on you. What we will do if you are stuck in a place like that is we will help you, give you enough of a lifeline that you pull yourself out. We will not be pulling you out. Do you understand the difference? Yeah? Because it's your responsibility. And that's part of what comes as being an adult and doing learnings, right? Now, as part of being an adult learner, it also means that you get to learn in whatever way fits you, right? So if some of you prefer lying on the floor just to let it all soak in, I don't care, do it, right? Just make sure no one tramples on you. Just let people know that you're there, right? No silent missiles underneath the chairs or something. If you feel thirsty, go ahead, just stand up and grab yourself a drink. No need to put your hand up and say, please, miss, can I go to the loo? Right? Just go up, do whatever you need to do, come back. The only thing I will ask of you is please be respectful of other people's time in here. That means if you are going to get up, just get up quietly, maybe move off to the edge so you're not, blocking people's views. Don't start taking phone calls in the middle of a seminar, right? In fact, anyone here have a phone? A few people, I'm sure I do. Could you just double check that they're off at this point? Even if you've already turned them off and you know you've turned them off, it's worth double checking, isn't it? If for no other reason, then because I do have a habit of answering phones for you. And then you have to go to family therapy to fix your marriage again.
В далекие-далекие времена жадные дворяне наживались на неграмотном народе. Хорошо, что у них был знакомый в Шервуде. И сейчас, спустя века, узнать, как пополнять свои кошельки, а не чужие, помогает Sherwood.biz. Он может превратить тунеядца во фрилансера, любителя в настоящего профи. Помочь безыдейному стать гением. Хочешь привлечь клиентов в свое дело, научиться программированию или анимации, а может выучить чужеземные языки? Получить знания, чтобы заработать, тебе поможет Sherwood.biz. Заходи, узнавай, учись.
И позвольте мне сказать вам кое-что еще. Нет стремления более естественного, чем стремление к знанию.
So we're about to embark on a kind of a voyage, a hypnotic voyage, are we not? Most people think that in order to go on a voyage, you have to know where you're going to end up. Some of you probably think you already know where you'll end up at the end of this process, or have a hope. And I would encourage you, whatever it is you're thinking will be the outcome at the end of this week, that you allow that to be put to one side, even forget about it. Because if you do, the chances of you reaching an even better place than the one you've currently got in mind are much higher. In fact, in the kind of journey that we'll be taking here, the less you know about where you're going or what you're doing, the better it'll be for you. It's like one of those trips you take as a child, where you know you're safe in mum's and dad's car, they're just driving. They're kind of like big servants. They know exactly where they're going to be taking you on holiday. And the only thing you need to do is be excited about wherever it is that you will be landing. And of course, along the way, there's going to be a lot of scenery that you will see. Enjoy it. Enjoy each step of the process. There is no specific scenery for you to discover. There is no specific place for you to be. The place that you will end up in will be better, far better than anything you have conceived of yet, provided you're willing to do one thing. You take every step, one step at a time. This means you do not need to know what just occurred. Your memory can be a blank. You can do an exercise, return from it, and have no idea what it is you did or said or even experienced. And if that should happen to you, you can sit down in your chair comfortably and realize you're in the right place. In fact, the only thing you need to be aware of is, what is your next step? Going into an exercise. How do I begin? If you don't know that, that's what the assistants are for, what I'm here for. And if you do know that, just that one step, then you're good to go. From time to time, some of you may be tempted to ask a question like, how do I use this in this situation? Don't be surprised if your answer sounds something like this. Remembering that when you get to your destination, you will have all those answers. And that it's just fine to ask all the questions. In fact, you can ask any question you want, provided that you're okay with this as the answer at the right time. Provided your questions actually refer to the hypnotherapy program that you're on, I promise to answer every question in this room at some point during this week. We have a wall in the back corner over there. It's called the questions wall. If at any point a question arises that hasn't been answered or has given you one of these, you can write it down. We have post-it notes and pens over there, and place it on the wall. And I'll make sure that one way or another, those questions get answered, provided they relate to what you're doing here. Can't answer everything about hypnosis in once. We're going to focus in on what we're doing here. Is that okay with you guys? So it's good to have questions. And it's great to be able to have those questions in your mind as you're doing something without the need to find an answer. In the old way of teaching, the school way, you were expected to have an answer to each question, and there was only one answer. how well does that fit the world that you've lived in? People aren't that way. There are more than one answers to each question. And if you're in a hurry to get the answer, you might well end up with the poorest answer. So to the extent you're willing to have your questions and not answer them fully yet, you get to discover an even better answer than you would have received before. And isn't that the way that learning occurs most naturally? A little child sees mommy and daddy standing so tall. How do they do it? There's motivation. I want to stand just like them. The little child stands and it falls. No one tells it how to stand, where to place its hips or its knees, what angle to tilt the spine, whether to hold on to something or balance. No one criticizes or complains or corrects. And the child really doesn't even care how long it's standing. Stands, falls, stands, falls. And sometimes the falling is more throwing themselves down just for the pleasure of getting down there or standing back up again. And we've all learned things, have we not? It is said that one of the most complex tasks, skills to learn, is a language. Yet you all speak at least one language with no effort, no need to think. An idea presents itself in your mind, and you just know how to express it, do you not? How did you acquire that skill? How do you do that? What made it so easy for you to learn your own language? Did you set yourself goals? Did you decide to learn so much vocabulary between sessions with mommy and daddy? Or was something else occurring? Something occurring in the back of your mind, whilst the front of your mind was simply engaged in the process of enjoying each step that you took. Learning is easy when we get out of our own ways to do it. Learning is natural when we don't try too hard. And the greatest discoveries are made when we're not looking for them. Some say that the greatest discovery of the 20th century was penicillin, saved millions of lives. Did you know it was a terrible mistake? Sir Fleming was experimenting on bacterial cultures. And he made a terrible mistake. The culture became contaminated. It's happened before to other scientists. Those poor scientists had to trash the experiment and start again. Sir Fleming saw the bacteria dying. And something inside him paused for long enough to realize that something greater was occurring than he had originally intended. Something greater that had a bigger impact on the entire world than any experiment he could have conceived up to that point. Your greatest discoveries, insights, learnings and skills will no doubt come from your greatest mistakes. So I hope, for your own sake, that you are wrong often in here. Because if you can be wrong enough, then the right that you will find will be so much righter. And you can find good things in any experience. In the 1970s, Stanford created an experiment. They wished to study why American prisons were so abusive to the prisoners. So they created a prison down in the depths of the psychology department, filled it with cameras and locked doors. Students volunteered. Some were prisoners, some were guards. The guards got to dress as guards. Big boots, big glasses. They even got a stick. The prisoners, on the appointed day, were arrested from their homes by the local sheriff's department. They were brought into the campus, where they were tried in the law department and sentenced, just for the sake of authenticity. Remember, this is Stanford. The cream of American youth. Within 3 days, the experiment was cancelled, because this cream of American youth was acting in unconscionable ways. And people said, what a terrible thing. But great things come from even the most terrible. What nobody realized at that time is why. Why did it happen? What happens when a human being plays a role long enough to forget he's playing? And we all forget eventually. The person becomes the role and forgets they were anything else before. And this is of tremendous value to you. Because you are here to take on a role, are you not? And you have choices to make. You could play at the role for a few minutes and then become yourself again, just to remind you of all the things you can't do. Or you could step into the role, accept it, play it night and day for just the days that we are here together. And be curious as you begin this. At what point you'll forget yourself enough that a better you emerges. And you can all think of what a great hypnotist would sound like. Can you not? You can all think of what a great hypnotist would look like. Can you not? Could you imagine the expression on your face in some time in the future when you've exceeded your own expectations? How you breathe, and most important of all, how you treat others. Because if you can imagine it long enough to forget that you've been making it up, then your whole makeup changes. So I'd like you to have an opportunity to experience that for a moment. Would you be game? Yeah? It's real simple. All we're going to do in a moment is we're going to ask you all to just stand up. You may as well do that now. It's okay. Yeah, I'm not that good. Guys, can you just make a little space here for now, just whilst we're setting it up? In a moment's time, there's a lot of people in the room here, like some 160 odd people. So in a moment's time, I'm going to ask you, as an individual, to make sure you've met every single person in this room. We'll give you some time for it, don't worry. We'll get about 7 minutes, maybe 8. And what do we normally do when we meet someone new? We shake them by the hand, do we not? We introduce ourselves by our name, and people are usually curious as to, who are you? What do you do? Why are you here? Where do you come from? Isn't that what people ask? So you might as well ask yourself the question, how would I meet someone if I was the most amazing hypnotist in the world? Would it be full of confidence? Hello. Would it be full of humility? Hi. Would it be something else? I don't know. Only you can know how you would do that. Could you not? And then I want you to introduce yourself with pride as to what you are. The world's greatest hypnotist. And of course, only the great really know that no matter how much they know about a subject or field, there's always more to learn. You appreciate that, don't you? It's the little minds that think they know it all. So you may as well tell the other person one thing that you've come here to learn, to continue your path to greatness. Does that make sense? And of course, in the spirit of social politeness, if you want to tell them where you're from and so on, by all means do so too. But remember, you only have 8 minutes to meet everyone in the room. So you don't have this much time to get to know each other fully yet. We have, after all, a whole week to do that in. Does that make sense to you guys? So you have 8 minutes. Go ahead and meet everyone now, as the hypnotist that you already are. Great job, well done. I've met a couple of very interesting hypnotists. I'm seeing some funky vibes in the air. That's fantastic. Now, let me ask all of you, who here enjoys going to hypnosis? Anyone? Just people who are like going, oh, I don't know, is this hypnosis seminar? Who enjoys going into hypnosis? Anyone in the room? Yeah. Okay. Who would like to go into a nice, pleasant trance right now? Hands up. Okay, come on up, Peter. Give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. Very nice to meet you, Peter. Oh, no, come this way, this way, this way, this way. We're going to face our lovely public over here. Do you see how wonderful these people are? Very soon you won't see a single one of them. That's good. Turn this way. Look at me. Focus. Take a deep breath in. Breathe out. And sleep all the way. That's right. Deeper. Deep. That's it. Good. Deeper, deeper still. There you go. All the way. Doing a fantastic job. Deeper and deeper still. Now I want to thank you. As I put you back on your own balance, going deeper into trance. That's it. Even more deeply there, Peter. That's good. That's it. Sinking, floating, drifting down. It feels good, does it not? Now I want you to realize that as the first volunteer up here, you took a risk, and I really appreciate that. So I'm going to ask your unconscious mind to give you a gift. The gift of learning. That's it. In a moment, you'll discover a wonderful sensation beginning inside. That's the beginning of your unconscious mind searching through all your memories of learning things naturally, easily, quickly, with passion and enthusiasm. Nod your head when you find that feeling, and it'll grow. That's right, all the way up through your chest into your shoulders, arms, leg, head, changing everything about you, your whole thought process changing. Can you feel that happening? Because your unconscious mind is good at one thing above all others: learning and changing. Now I want you to realize that this feeling can follow you through the rest of this week to make all of this quick and easy for you to do. Exercise is going to be more fun the further you go along. And you're going to have no idea what you're doing, but you're going to love it. Because at the end of it, you will know, really know, that you have surpassed all your expectations as a hypnotist. That's good to know, isn't it? Very good. So in a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 3. At the count of 3, I'd like you to open you up, feeling refreshed, relaxed, alert. Simply fantastic. Locking inside of you that core that makes learning all this easy. You know what I mean by that, don't you? Very good. 1, coming up slowly. 2, take a deep breath in, revitalizing, refreshing. 3, eyes open, back in the room, feeling fantastic. Good job, Peter. Rock and roll. Yeah. Yes! All right, have a little seat over there. Everyone in this room will be able to do exactly this before the lunch break. Are you excited? Yeah. All right, so in order to do this, we're going to break it down to some very simple steps, but there'll be a lot of them. So in order to assist us in doing that, I'm going to ask you to maybe shuffle chairs a little bit to the sides, there's more room, and very importantly, please listen out when I interrupt for the next exercise to begin. So I'll send you off for a quick 1-minute thing, then I'll pause you, and then even if you're only halfway done, just jump right back in again. You'll get another chance to do it again right afterwards. Does that make sense? Recommendation, if you had to stop halfway through doing something because you're the second person, become the first person the next time around. That makes it a little bit easier on you, all right? So I'm going to stand up, move the chairs a little bit to the side. There'll be some on the edges and stuff. We'll just be generally hovering around this sort of area. Good. I'd like to volunteer. This is going to be a very simple thing to do just to demonstrate. Come on up. Believe it or not, the most difficult part of an instant induction, like you just saw here, thanks everybody, give me a nice round of applause. The most difficult part of the instant induction is the mechanics of it, and they're actually pretty easy. So we're going to work through this step by step, right? The most important thing you will ever do in hypnosis is your setup. It's anything you do before anyone realizes that hypnosis has begun. Does that make sense to you guys? In this setting here, we're going to start it off in a very simple way by what I call compliance testing. We're making sure that Gabriel really is following along. There's no hesitations, there's no blocking his mind, there's no mind coming up saying like, oh, I don't know about doing all this. Make sense? The way I'll test is very simply by giving a simple instruction. Would you come over here for me, please? Sure. Do you notice how naturally and smoothly he walked there? He wasn't resisting, he wasn't questioning, he wasn't going like, why? Right? Would that be a useful person to work with or a more difficult person to work with? Useful. Right? There you go, very good. So give Gabriel a nice round of applause. Thank you, that was it. I want you to find 3 partners. You will have 60 seconds to do this, so you have to be quick. 3 different partners to do this with. You're going to ask them, wait for it, 2 things you'll do. Number 1, ask them if they want to do hypnosis, and just listen to how they respond. Number 2, you're going to ask some kind of action from them, so you can observe how well they respond to it. It could be as simple as, will you stand over here, or look at my eyes. I don't care what the action is, as long as it's not too bizarre, and does not involve taking clothes off. It's not that kind of hypnosis here. I don't care what the action is, but I want you to ask them if they're willing to go in hypnosis and request a simple physical action so you can observe it. Do you all understand what you're doing, yes? Yes. Off you go, 1 minute. Was that easy to do? Yes? Okay, good. Now, just a quick favor, just so we can speed this whole process along a little bit. Once you hear me calling you back, if you hear people around you still talking, just give me a little tap on the back or the shoulder, and just to remind them, because some people just won't hear with all the noise going on. Is that okay with you guys? So someone just taps in the shoulder while you're talking, realize that they're doing it for your own best interest, so you get to learn more too. Okay? Good. So this was easy to do, wasn't it? Right? What are we doing here? What is this whole compliance testing about? Any ideas? It gets a little bit of attention, absolutely. And the bigger thing we're looking at is compliance. What does compliance show you? Willingness, which is another way of saying, where is that critical factor at? If they're resisting, there's a critical factor live. If they're being very willing and compliant, the critical factor is already halfway shut down. You're halfway there already. Your job, should you wish to accept it, is to put the person in a position before you begin the hypnosis where the hypnosis has already occurred. That makes life easy on you. Does that make sense? Okay, and we'll play more with that as we go along. Another volunteer, please. Anyone? Coming up? Any questions so far?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you say critical factor, it's just the resistance.
So the question is, when you talk about the critical factor, are we just talking about the resistance? We'll give you a very simple definition right now, right? Think of 2 rooms in the mind. One says yes, one says no. One accepts information, one rejects it. It's a oversimplified model, but you get the idea. Is that fair? The critical factor is the no room. It's the one that stops your ideas being accepted. And that's one of the key things we want to bypass in hypnosis, because that's the reason we aren't being influential, persuasive, or can't reach into someone and help them out. Does that help? It's a simplified idea, but it'll get more sophisticated as you get experience. Okay, so we have Christopher over here, and we say, hey, Christopher, you want to do some hypnosis? Absolutely. Great, stand over here for me, would you? Now, we've got good compliance, right? In terms of the ABS formula is how we kind of think about hypnosis. What's the A stand for, anyone? Attention. You need to absorb their attention. Without attention, hypnosis is impossible. All you need is unconscious attention, but to be honest with you, when you have that conscious attention, you have the unconscious one too, so you may as well get both, right? This compliance test gives a little bit of attention. The next thing I'm going to do is arrest their attention. In other words, most people, when they walk through the world, are looking around, they're thinking about tomorrow and about the person who just cut them up in the traffic and how they're going to kick the living daylights out of their cat because it peed on their bed again or whatever, right? Their mind is anywhere but where they are right now. I need to collect all of that attention so that I have it for the process that I'm going to do. Does that make sense? Have you heard the phrase, the windows are the eyes of the soul? Windows, the eyes of the soul? Something like that. Out there is your soul. No, the eyes are the windows of the soul. You know this, the expression? The eye is actually hardwired. Actually, the eyes, or the optical nerve, believe it or not, is the only part of the brain that's actually visible from the outside. It's actually part of your brain, right? So the eyes will give you a very clear indication of where the brain is at. So I want to make sure those eyes are locked on something. The easiest thing to lock eyes on is me or my own eyes. There's something about eye contact that becomes very intimate. There's a lot of other things for you, which we'll explore as we go along. Does that make sense? So once we've got the compliance, all I'm going to do is maybe put a hand on the shoulder just to get a little bit of that physical attention. You notice how your attention lifts up when I do this? I could be talking over here. As soon as this happens, do you notice a difference in his attention towards me, right? Because I'm invading his physical space. It's not unsafe, but I get more attention. Please look at my eyes and just, that's it. Excellent, very good. So I'm going to ask you to do exactly what you did. Ask them to do hypnosis, compliance test, that bit's easy, right? Then I'm going to ask you to tell them to look into your eyes, and I want you to watch their eyes until something happens that makes you believe that you have all of their attention. Now, the fact is, right now, you probably don't know. Don't worry, I'll get that. You probably don't know what that something is. Would that be fair to say? Yeah. Go find out. 1 minute, off you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Was that easy to do, folks? Yes? What did you notice? If someone saw pupil dilating, what do you notice? It felt like the eyes are expanding out. That's the pupil dilation. Very good. Carry on. Anyone notice the breath settling down a little bit? Good. What else do you notice? The blink rate would change. I like the way you said it. It would change because sometimes it increases, sometimes it decreases, sometimes it stops. It's the change that's important. Go ahead. Oh, they're doing the search pattern from one eye. They can look left, right, but they're not looking at the room. Is that correct? Perfect. That's very good. That's the, I think it's called the saccadic eye movement. Very good. In the back there? Perfect. So he's saying that he feels like you're getting sucked in, whether you're doing it or the other person's doing it. Are you kind of noticing that there's kind of a bit of a weird mutual thing going on here, right? That is good. That is what is known in the old literature as hypnotic rapport beginning to develop. It's perfect, okay? So you notice how you probably know a lot more about hypnosis than you realized. Did you know to look for these signs? Some of you may have done because you read them, but a lot of you probably did not. Yet you spotted something occurring as a result of a behavior you're engaged in. Is that fair enough? Some part of you realized this is probably important over anything else that's going on, right? That part of you is the part that's going to come out more and more and make you a truly great hypnotist if you allow yourself to trust it. Does that make sense? So, can I have you volunteer again, just because you're nice and close?
I suppose.
There you go. Would I do some hypnosis?
Yes.
Great.
Absolutely.
Have some over here, please. Okay? So we have this, and we can arrest their attention, right? What I'd like you to do now, you're going to have another moment to do this again. We're going to add some few things, more things. But this time, every third or fourth person that you work with, I want you to specifically hesitate as the client. So when I say, would you stand over here for me, please? Did you notice that? His expression, his little tension and so on? Am I ready to begin with Christopher yet? No. Very good. If you spot that, then you want to give them a little chat just to kind of calm them down and say, now you realize when I say hypnosis, all I'm talking about is taking your mind to a comfortable place where you actually get access to resources that you've not had in a while. In other words, it's more about you than about anything else. You'll get to do whatever you want, in fact, more so than ever before. Does that kind of make sense a little bit? All right, so just, can you guys not hear me in the back there? It's kind of mixed up a little bit. Can we play with the audio a little bit? All right, is that a bit better? Can you guys hear a bit better now? Is that working for you guys there? Yes? Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. So I'll do that whole thing again differently. So you realize when I say hypnosis, what I'm not talking about is mind control. I'm not going to ask for your secrets or anything like that. In fact, what I'm talking about is that, you know, you have had great days where everything seems to work out, and some part of you just knew what to do, and then there's other days where you seem to be blocked off like that door's shut. All I want to do is show you how to open the door. Would you be willing to try that? Come over here a second, would you? Do I now have compliance? Am I ready to continue? So you do not continue if the person's got hesitation, if the no room is too open. A little open is okay. A little hesitation is just fine. A little fear is a good thing. A lot of fear is not. Does that make sense? So not everyone will be doing this. So you'll be having normal compliance, and then suddenly someone will surprise you. You'll go, oh, I'll have to do a little extra work. And that's kind of how the world works anyways. Right? Everyone clear? Now, seeing as that is quite easy, go ahead. Oh, the question is, how many compliance tests can you do? The answer is as many as you want. Seriously. At some point, people may get a little fed up. Get up, sit down, move here, do this, lick the wall. But I have heard of one hypnotist who unfortunately started a cult, so that's not necessarily a good thing. But he because the people were very much, should we say, bought into his ideas, his ideology. He had one person running around for 3 hours doing random tasks like touching lamps, sitting on the chair, putting a paper out, putting it back again, tying their shoes, picking the phone up, putting the phone, random tasks for 3 hours until they just sat down in the chair exhausted in trance, right? Not a nice person, but if you have the right relationship, you can get away with a lot of things. In conversation hypnosis, it would be much more subtle than that. You typically won't need more than 2 or 3 of them. If you find one's failing, you probably stop there, fix it, and then 2 or 3 after that will remind you or show you that it's actually working. Does that answer your question? Okay. So, seeing as that part's really easy, isn't it? You're just adding a little bit of a nuance. So we may as well have a look at me. At this point, all I want you to do is take your hand. You all have hands, is that correct? Take your hand, put on the back of his neck, somewhere between where the head and the neck meet, so you're just kind of cradling it there. And that's it. As soon as you see whatever you saw before, or new things that tell you this person is wherever they need to be, however you define that, then you move on to the next person. Does that make sense? One more quick description of it, or example of it. So will you stand over here for me? Okay? He's complied. I don't need to do anything extra. Look at me. Very good. That's it. Simple, easy. 1 minute, 3 people, off you go. Thank you. Thank you. So how was that, folks? Easy? Yes. Fun? Did you get kind of caught out a few times by someone like being a little more hesitant? You're like, I've got to do some work now. This is great. Who felt excited when they got a little bit of resistance this time, right? That's how you should be feeling, because it means it's no longer plain vanilla introduction you get to do more fun things with people, right? Seriously, the harder they resist, the more fun it gets for you. So just keep that in mind for a little bit. Mechanically speaking, in terms of what you're asking people to do and what you're remembering to do, it's really easy, isn't it? Would that be fair? So let's have another volunteer. Come on up. You're a perfect volunteer for this, in fact, as well. So we have, just step a little bit back a little bit. Compliant test 1, right? Are you ready for hypnosis? Yes. Test 2, over here. Test 3. Are we pretty happy about this so far? Yes? Now, look at me. Now here's a slight problem. In a moment, I'm going to bring him forward as you saw me doing. I'm going to rest him on my shoulder. You don't have to make physical contact that way. We'll show variations in a minute. But it's a simple one, and I'll explain why later. The problem is, he's wearing glasses, rather, like I am. What's going to happen when his forehead comes towards my shoulder? What do you think is going on inside his mind? Oh, my glasses, no, right? It's part of the thing, because it does not feel very well when these things get pushed into your eyeball sockets, right? So if you have someone who's wearing glasses, just make that part of your compliance test. Would you mind taking your glasses off for a moment? Okay. Sure. Just place them over here. They'll be nice and safe. So it's still part of the thing, right? Don't worry, they'll be nice and safe. They'll be right there when you're ready. Now, notice how it's a real simple thing. You built it into your induction. It's actually a nice part of your compliance test. If you didn't want to take his glasses off, then I know I've got more work to do, right? Look at me. There you go. Good. Well done. When you have here, back of the neck, all I'm going to ask you to do is guide. The word is guide. Don't yank, don't pull, don't rip. Guide. Guide the head into your shoulder. Is that easy to do? Yes. Guide the head. Now, a couple of warnings. There is 1 or 2 individuals in this room who are probably a little heavier than others, a little taller, a little more muscular, whatever. Make sense? There is going to be more mass being pulled down by the planet through you. Should that be the case, you have an option of several things you can do. Option number 1, if they're big, stick one leg out. The one you want to have back is the one that the shoulder is going to come onto, because that gives you more of a brace. So when they come onto you there, you have a big person, you can take the weight. If you in any way doubt your ability to take that person's weight, or they're so huge, you're sitting up here going like, oh man, really? Then come over here, would you? If you put your glasses on the table for a minute, that'd be great. And just have a sit on here. Instantly, he's in my domain, right? Just ask them to sit down. It's real easy. They don't have to be double forward or anything like that. I don't even need to have any pressure on my chest. It's just an added bonus, which we'll talk about later. I can just go for the whole same thing here. Just look at me a moment, put a hand in the back, and then just guide them to this point. It's real easy. Does that make sense? Use your intelligence, folks. Make up the environment to suit you. Any questions? All right. 1.5 minutes to do all that. Find tall people, short people, thin people, fat people, and people who are so skinny you don't even see them. Thank you. Was that easy? Yes? Was that easier than you expected? How many people here had to maneuver things around a little bit because you had a real tall person or a large person and you just took control of the environment? Hands up if you did that? Excellent. Because it's going to happen in real life. Most of the hypnotherapists do things seated down, not standing up. The purpose of the instant induction right now is to understand the essence of hypnosis, right? So one of the essential elements is you take control of the environment. So it gives you what you need to do it safely and work safely with people. Make sense? Good. How many people forgot to take people's glasses off? Not an error you'll make a second time, is it?
First time, second time.
All right, let's have a volunteer, please. Come on up. Oh, okay, come on up. That's it. There we go. So, stand back here a little bit just so can you see over there, okay, Frank? Are we looking good? Turn around and face over here, would you? Compliance test is all secret. Can I borrow your glasses a second? Now, what did I just do? Did I ask him to put the glasses down? Why? Because glasses, for people who don't see too well, are important. It's how you feel safe in the world. You can see things. If he's trusting me with his glasses, do you think I have a lot of compliance? So you're going to have as many of these little secret compliance things thrown in on top. It tells you what level they're at, right? Don't worry, these are safe. I'll put them right here on the table, so you'll have them when you're ready again. I don't want him thinking about those glasses. That's why I'm telling him where they're going. Does that make sense? So look at me. Very good. There you go. That's good. You have this here. You've got the idea of gently bringing it to the shoulder. No yanking. No face pulling. Importantly, when it comes forward, make sure the forehead comes in, not the nose. The nose tends to break, and then there's blood. And then you have to get your suit dry cleaned, or maybe even have to buy a new one. And we just don't want to do that, right? So make sure it's the forehead that comes into the shoulder. In time, you don't even have to get anywhere near your space. If they just hang in space like this, that's fine too. It's just good to have that as a stop point in case they really flop. A lot of people do. Make sense? Question? If he hesitates, absolutely. Any hesitation, in my mind, is the critical factor spiking up again. So I have to talk to him, even if it's just like nonsense to comfort him. Says, it's okay, don't worry. It's fine. It's fine. Can I borrow your glasses? Right? That might be enough, right? I don't know what the matter is, but if he's more hesitant, like, oh, and then I ask him, what is it? Are you concerned about not being able to see or anything like that? They'll go, yeah. And I might make a joke of it and say something like, well, don't worry. In a few moments' time, you won't be able to see anything anyway, so you may as well have the glasses. I'm not saying those sort of things to be flippant, by the way. Please do not think that I'm making fun of the clients. I never do that. Notice that's kind of a cooperative humor, because humor is great at bursting anxiety, of getting through fear. Does that make sense? So, you have their attention, hand on the back of the neck. Before you guide them in, you need something that's going to switch the brain a little bit. You need to startle them for a moment, right? The traditional way of doing it is, on the back of the head, you use one finger, not the whole hand, not a fist, One little finger. Watch. My finger's here. Let me just do it in this way so people can see. All you do with this one finger is just tap the back of his head. Do you see his whole head jerking a little bit? Because this is where the head's balanced. People don't like to be touched as a rule in normal social interactions. Of course, my hand's here already, so I know that it's okay, shall we say. He would have freaked out beforehand otherwise. So at this point, I want to trigger the startle reflex. There. That's all you need. And notice how, although his head doesn't seem to move very much, would that be fair to say? Does it feel pretty dramatic inside? Like when your head's moving, it feels like, wow, that's quite a big shift, right?
Yes, big shift.
It feels like a big shift, right?
Big movement.
Exactly. But it's only a small movement from the outside, right? This is important for you to realize. Most people who see like a state of just going like sleep and the people just flop all over the place, they think that they're flopping because the hypnotist is using power, physical force. He is not. Because that kind of power would rip heads off. And then you would have a lawsuit and probably spend time in jail. Who knows, right? So you want to be nice and gentle, hand on the back of the neck, and just very gently tip his head so it just has a little, just tiny bit of loss of balance, that's all. Is that easy to do, folks? Yes. It works exactly the same. Have a seat on here, would you? In fact, just stay in the seat. I'm going to turn you around a little bit so people can see. Ooh, there we go. Magic. You can all see okay? Exactly the same here if they're sitting down. Easy? All that, once you've done this, all you can do is just guide them all the way in so you're in control of their balance and so on. That's the only thing to do next. Is that easy to do, folks? Any questions? 1.5 minutes to do all that with 3 people. Thank you very much. Thank you. How was that? Was that easy? Yes. Yeah? Do you notice how when you're the subject, it takes very little pressure to basically disorient you? Would that be fair to say? That is what you want. That is the startle reflex being stimulated. Your amygdala is being triggered. There's all kinds of wonderful things with your attention, your emotional arousal, and all kinds of other things. We'll discuss those in time. It's the perfect point of entry for hypnosis. There's only one thing missing. Any idea what that is? That's right. Sleep, right? It is the traditional word, not because they're falling asleep, it's just because you can compound a lot of ideas into that. In the West, we have hypnosis, stage hypnosis, and so on. So people have a cultural idea of what is meant by it. Does that make sense? You go to Southeast Asia, you say sleep, they'll go, what the hell? It means very little to them because they don't have the same associations, right? But you may as well use them whilst you're here because if people understand it, then they understand kind of what it means. So can I have a volunteer again? Anyone? Come on up. Give them a round of applause, folks. Can I borrow your glasses? Sure. Oh, thank you. Ooh, I'm getting even more personal. What's going on here? If I was a doctor, I would be kicked out for touching a patient. Oh, no. They're right here, so they'll be safe. No one's going to sit in that chair. Okay? Stand over here, would you? Look at me. There you go. That's it. Has the induction started already? Exactly, it has. Most people won't realize it, but it has. And sleep all the way, that's it, all the way. That's it, good, 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 good. And relaxing, deeper, that's it. That's it, there you go. There you go. I'm going to put you back on your own balance, but you go deeper as you do. As you find your own balance in your own legs, you'll go deeper as you do. It's a wonderful thing, isn't it, Don? A wonderful thing. Drifting down. Until you find what you saw the other person up here finding, something inside, a feeling that lets you know that your unconscious mind is going to absorb all this learning like a sponge. Have you got that feeling yet? There you go. Can you feel it growing, spreading? There you go. That's it. Good feeling, isn't it? That's right. There you go. I'd like you to memorize this. Because as good as this feels, you get to feel that way while doing exercise, while you're doing the whole week here doing hypnosis. Isn't that something? That's right. Whenever you're ready, whenever that feeling is locked in and you feel that it's there for you, you'll find that your breathing shifts, your eyes flicker open more by themselves. You'll be back in the room feeling refreshed, relaxed, alert, simply fantastic, ready to just dive in and do stuff. You do, don't you? Yeah. Good job, well done. Give me a nice round of applause, folks. Wait a second. Is this really so different, except for that little end piece with the suggestion, so we'll come on to that. In terms of the mechanics, can you all do the mechanics of that? Will that be easy to do? Yeah? It's really just exactly what you're doing a moment ago. Just say the one word. Let's hear the word. Sleep. All right, half of you have got it. There's 160 people in this room. You should be deafening me. Let's try that again. Sleep. That's a room full of master hypnotists. Okay? So, what I want you to pay attention to when you do this is, can I borrow you just because you have no glasses? It's a little easier. When you bring him forward, you have the little tap. So you have a little tap and then a guide. Make sense? Just like you did before. As this comes into your shoulder, you'll notice there's a certain level of pressure. In other words, he's putting more or less balance on you. Right now, I have a medium level. All I want you to do is when you get a little bit of that, is just to give him some feedback, but indirectly. It's like, that's right. So, that's right. There you go. That's it. There you go. Can you see him leaning more and more on me? There you go. That's it. That's right. Nice and safe. There you go. That's good. Great. Now, if you should tense up a little bit, because it can happen, just tense up a little bit for me. No, that's it. No, then the instructions will be the opposite. No, not this way, the other way. That's it. There you go. You see, I haven't given any direct instructions what to do, have I? But his body knows, and he kind of figures out. It's kind of happened in the back of his awareness. I want his balance because if I have his balance, he's trusting me with one of the most important things that we have. Eyes closed, no balance. That's an unusual place for most people to be. So the fact that he's trusting me with this tells me a lot about the rapport that we have. Does that make sense? And then back on your feet, back into the room whenever you're ready. Good man, good job, well done. Thank you very much. Give him a round of applause. If testing for balance is too much for you at this point, only do the sleep and the guiding in. And then once you're there, just sit there for like, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds, just hang around. See what happens. If you get bored hanging around, you may as well do it. And if you don't, then just hang around some more. Does that make sense to you guys? You get 2 minutes. I want you to do 3 people. Off you go. So how's that, folks? Was that easy? Yes. So really, you've done the most difficult part of hypnosis. In a moment, we're going to have a break. When we come back from the break, we'll show you how to put this whole thing together into a complete induction piece so you can actually go off at lunchtime and freak the hell out of the waitresses, the bus drivers. Someone cuts you up in the car, get out politely, smile, say, that wasn't very nice, sleep. I'll be back in an hour. Before we go to the break, I'd like you to do one thing. I would like you, as you move off the break, just very quickly have a look at the wall over there where you have the numbers with your names and so on. And then go ahead and find your assistants. Assistants, could you please organize yourself in numerical order with numbers 1 through 5 or 6, I guess, on this side and on the other on this side. And then you guys can find each other. How many numbers do we have, assistants? 15. So 1 through 7 here, 8 through 15 on this side. All right? So we're going to have a 15-minute break. Please, everyone, check your watches right now. I would ask you to be back 5 minutes early. The sooner you're back, the sooner we can get going, the sooner we can get more of this wonderful stuff done. All right, guys, off you go.